Good morning, welcome to this week's fibro section. And this week I'm filming this in the car. Why? Why would you do that? Because Holly has an appointment, so I've driven her to an appointment and it's about an hour, so I've got an hour to kill while she's there. So I thought, well, I might as well record the fibro section in the car while I'm waiting and then edit it for something to do. So sorry if it looks a bit odd, and also my hair dry blew up this morning, so I haven't been able to do my fringe, hence it probably looks a complete mess. But it is what it is, so let's get on with it. It's not going to be a long fibro section today, so it's going to be a shorter one, but something still that's interesting. So here's the trusted notepad, and this week it's going to be on tender points. Now it was going to be on trigger points, but tender points and trigger points are two different things, and I will get to that, and I didn't know that until I researched this. Again, don't shoot the messenger, it's all research, it's all stuff that I have researched. You're going to hear things outside like lawnmowers, cars, different things. I can't do anything about that, so you're just going to have to cope with that. So if I hold this notepad to the side, I can just glance up at it as I'm talking to you. So tender points. Fibromyalgia tender points are located in clusters around the neck, chest, shoulders, elbows, hips and knees. They're located on both sides of the body, both above and below the waist. For a point to be considered tender, the spot should produce localized pain when your doctor presses on it. What is the difference between trigger points and tender points? This is something I found really interesting. The primary difference is that trigger points can produce referred pain, which can cause pain in other parts of the body. Trigger points are located at the front lower sides of your neck, upper chest, inner elbows, just above inner knees, back of your head, top of the shoulders, upper back, upper buttock and hips. So quite similar to tender points, similar places, but that's the difference. The trigger points can cause pain in other parts of your body, whereas the tender points are tender there. Tender points are very small, about the size of a penny, and all of them are around joints, but fibro pain has nothing to do with the joints themselves. It's a round joint. Instead, fibro pain affects the soft tissues of your body, mainly the muscles. When it comes to tender points, it's important to understand that fibro is not a consistent syndrome. What that means is that you may feel intense pain in some areas one day and in others the next. It's never consistent. Sometimes you can. Sometimes if I've got like my wrist hurting, that can hurt in the same place for a week, but then other pains can come and go as well. So that's why it's not called a consistent syndrome. Trigger points are defined as areas of muscle that are painful to touch and are characterized by the presence of taut bands and the generation, I'm trying to read my writing, of a referral pattern of pain. Tender points are areas of tenderness occurring in muscle tendon junction or fat pad. I've just got to put my arm down because it really hurts holding this notepad up. Now I love my trusted notepad, I do, but it's hurting my arm today. Let me balance it on there and see if that helps. I'll balance my elbow on the car door. Can the doctor diagnose from tender points, like diagnose fibro, that is? Your doctor can test the painful tender points during a physical exam, but you will also need to tell them about the exact pain you feel in those areas. You will need to explain all your other symptoms too. Years ago, doctors would count tender points that cause pain in the patient. If 11 out of 18 tender points tested positive for sensitivity, this would help them make a diagnosis. Now, a doctor or consultant will usually diagnose through listening to a patient's history and symptoms which have been present for more than 3 months to be fibromyalgia. What causes tender points? Although experts don't know exactly what is causing these sensitivities in specific areas, it has to do with muscle spasms. When muscles get spasms, they tend to have a lack of oxygen and blood. That can build up acid and carbon dioxide, which causes more pain in the muscles, which causes greater spasms. So it's a vicious cycle. And I never knew that. So that's something that I've learnt today. What is the treatment for tender points? Treating tender points involves treating your fibromyalgia condition as a whole and may involve several prescriptions and recommendations for lifestyle modifications. Medications will be tried until one seems to help a little bit, but a lot have side effects, as we all know. I mean, I have been tried on, I started on pregabalin, then I went on to gabapentin, both which helped me to put on 3 stone in weight and made me feel drunk all the time. And when they're coming off of them, well, it was awful. Sorry, car's just pulling past. It was terrible. Then I was put on amitriptyline and again felt like a zombie. So then they moved me on to nortriptyline, which is what I'm on now, which does definitely help my pain. And it doesn't send it all away, but it's a lot better, because I tried to reduce them and the pain was so bad. So it does obviously help the pain, but it's just finding the right one for you, which can take a long time. If there's one specific muscle group that is more painful than another, then that's where an injection would play a role, using a small amount of cortisone to the area. And if it continues to spasm, Botox could be used to keep the muscle paralysed. A fun fact for you, I know Holly won't mind me saying, but because Holly's got chronic migraine syndrome, which means she's got a constant migraine every day, all day, and she's had that for years now, about 3 or 4 years she's had chronic migraine syndrome. She has like these Botox injections in the back of her neck into her head to paralyse the nerves, to stop the pain, and they're really good, really help her. But she only has one sort of every 3 months or so. So yeah, I know that they can really work. Lifestyle modifications are critically important in managing fibro symptoms. Gentle exercise and muscle strengthening can help. Trying to control your stress levels is very important, because we know how much stress affects our fibro. Alternative therapies include acupuncture, massage, acupressure, physical therapy, yoga and CBT. And I will link my video for you above and in the description on alternative therapies, in case you haven't watched that. You can watch it after this. Something just fell out the trusted notepad. Okay, it's a picture of a horse, because everyone has a picture of a horse in their trusted notepad. What can make tender point pain worse? A number of things can make fibro symptoms worse. They include anxiety, changes in weather like cold or humidity, depression, fatigue, hormonal changes, infections, lack of sleep, emotional stress, physical exhaustion, and not moving around enough. And that last one, I think, is really important, because even if you are bedbound, you still need to try and move your arms, or just any part of you, your head. You've got to keep moving, because you will stiffen up and it will make your pain so much worse. Anyway, that's enough rambling on from me. That's it for this week's fibro section. So have you learnt anything about the trigger and tender points? Because I never knew they were two separate things. They're very similar in places where they are, but obviously the trigger points is where you can have the pain referred to another part of the body. The tender points are tender in that area. I never knew that. So I learnt something, and I learnt about the spasming in the muscles and things like that. Very interesting, because sometimes it helps to know how the pain is happening, why, you know, how is it going on. And I am going to do a fibro section on the pain gates, which means the gates that can open and shut to cause more or less pain. So I'm going to do another fibrosection on that another time. But let me know if you've learned anything new in the comments below. Let me know if you suffer from these tender points in these areas, because I went to sports massage, which I've probably said before a while ago now, and she said my body was like a map of fibro. I was a classic case of every tender point that she touched was a classic case of fibro. So, and she also did a thing called releasing the trigger point. So these were trigger points, so she would feel the trigger point, she would push her thumb or her fingers into that trigger point until as much as I could bear, and then she would gently ease her fingers and thumb off of that trigger point, and it just sort of released that knot in that tender area. So she did a lot of that on me. But yeah, it was just interesting, and I haven't had sports massage for quite a while now, mainly due to, you know, it costs a lot of money to keep going to these things, doesn't it? And so that's another thing that's been put on a back burner for me for a little while. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's interesting, and it's sometimes good to know these different things to do with our fibro, because it just helps us to understand a little bit more. But don't forget to give it a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed this week. Drop me a nice comment and do all the usual garb. And I will see you on Saturday for the weekly. And it's Poppy's 16th birthday tomorrow. How did she get to be 16? I don't know. But anyway, love you lots. See you later. Bye.